Well, good night, everybody. This is exactly how we planned it. Obviously, like it's a house full of geniuses. Look, the whole idea behind this event, we're taking cues from Hyde Park in the UK and the soapbox events. So it's as casual as it's supposed to be, and people are just going about their business, whether they're having a drink, something to eat, or whether they've come to listen. Right? The topic is very, very dear to me, and it's dear to us at Lit as well, obviously, to the speakers. And it's the impact of arts and culture on tourism, which is a switch from how we've seen it for many, many years. For years, it has been the impact of tourism and arts and culture. So we flipped it because we feel that culture is important, and we feel that people come to people. People don't come just to a white beach or to turquoise waters or just to eat. The uniqueness of any society in the world, the basis is in its culture. So we have supporting us some good friends out of Martinique representing Interreg, and this series in different forms is going throughout the Caribbean, from Haiti straight down to Trinidad. So we are proud to host the Anguilla version. And this version tonight is called Soapbox. And the topic is the impact of arts and culture on tourism. I'm going to invite our partner from Martinique to come up and say a couple words. I'm going to be playing the host tonight. I might have a drink in my hand, so nobody fret. Don't get worried. It's not that formal. So, Sabrina, Jack, come on up. Can we hear for Sabrina, please?
Hello, everyone. Good night. Thank you for being here. So, I'm Sabrina, and I'm glad to co organize that event with Davon, Ivan, and all the other members of the team. So, thank you very much, and thanks again for being here. That is true that tourism is a very important subject in the Caribbean. So, we have really important, I would say, speakers who will give us their point of view. And just to talk briefly about the Richès Karayib project, that is a project that is co-funded by Interreg Karayib and is led by Aziz WI, Amdak, and Sakay Malad Karayib from Dominica. So we unite to be able to highlight the Caribbean richness. So Richès Karayib means in Creole Caribbean richness. So we aim to highlight the cultural stakeholder, our culture around the world. So we are going through several islands with our several partners, and we really want to, on each island, be able to show the best of it. And through that, several I would say stops. The goal is really to create linkages between the several islands. So thank you very much, and I hope that you will enjoy your night in that very nice place. So thanks again.
Thank you, Sab. We met Sab a couple months ago, and we've really worked hard to put this production together in a very, very short space of time. And the speakers who are joining us are, some of my favorite people, not only as people, but also in their experiences and what it is I've learned from them. And I'm happy to invite them here to share what is really their opinion, their experience, their knowledge in this particular area. And trust me, they're very, very well versed in these areas. Nobody is directed or scripted by anybody else. You're going to hear things that you might not agree with. You might hear things that you don't support. But at the end of the day, it is their opinion and their experience that we're after. So it's all about the conversation. So first up, I'm going to invite a very well-respected member of the Anguillan community as a business person, you know, as a tradesman, boat builder, designer, an extraordinary person in all walks, including culture, Mr. David Carty.
Good evening all. Dave is a hell of a man to get me out tonight. You will notice that my hair is somewhat white. The speakers who follow me have far blacker hair. Miss Kentish, I'm sure you will see that age in this case is definitely coming before beauty. With the case of Ivan, I don't think Ivan has as much hair as I do. I have a full head of hair, but his is increasingly bare. But I'm sure in Ivan's case, his hair is also darker than mine. I say that to simply say that in any conversation of culture in which I must involve myself in terms of Anguilla and its culture, I have to look back. You have the privilege and opportunity with the speakers who follow to look forward. They're much younger than I am, and hopefully they will help to grapple with the dynamics of a modern culture in which Anguilla is today. I have to look back. So let me look back and share with you what I think it means to be an Anguillian and what it means to understand the culture in which we live. I had the great fortune of obtaining a scholarship 4 years after the Anguilla Revolution to go to the University of the West Indies. This was a time, mark you, when the government of Anguilla, where the person who was acting like the commissioner, which is then the governor of what is the governor today, had their offices in the Overlook restaurant. And the secretaries used to live in Clive's house just next door. That's where Anguilla was when I got my university. The deputy governor, who was also British, lived where Roy's restaurant is today. There were no facilities in the valley for the government of Anguilla except for the police force and the court. I was enrolled in the faculty of law, and 6 weeks later I was called by the dean of the faculty and told that I had to leave the faculty because of an objection from the government of St. Kitts Nevis Anguilla. No Anguillian could be studying law. So I was out on my ear with a bucket full of books that I couldn't read any longer. I was then allowed to do a scholarship degree in political science. And I will tell you today, as I've said then, if any of my sons wanted to do political science, I'd beat them. But I had one saving grace. With the influence of a wonderful teacher, a Jamaican, who made a profound impact on my life, I found myself heavily involved in the dramatic creative arts of the University of the West Indies. And along with a pool of young Caribbean artists at that time, we were able to do things and experience things that have had a lasting impact on my view of what I call the Caribbean civilization. I won't bore you with the achievements. I won't bore you with the wonderful times we had, except to say that I was able to rub shoulders with luminaries like Rex Nettleford. I was able to act on a Jamaican pantomime. The Jamaican pantomime is an annual affair that is huge. It's a musical, a combination of the musical and dramatic arts. I was able to act with Louise Bennett Coverley. For those of you who can share a gray hair, one of the most iconic Caribbean artists to have ever lived. Miss Lou, the wonderful Miss Lou. I even had the privilege one night, since we rehearsed so late into the evening, of her dropping me home to Mona campus in her Jaguar and me stuttering to say goodnight in the presence of this iconic Caribbean artist. Those were highlights. But I want to share this highlight with you. Because I had made a reputation for myself as a very active actor, and actors are simply people who tell stories with their bodies and their voices. We decided, the university students, to do a production of Derek Walcott's Ti-Jean and His Brothers. Now, I think you should know, even if you're not from Anguilla, that Derek Walcott is one of the Caribbean's only poet laureates. Derek Walcott from St. Lucia achieved, with his incredible book of poetry, Omeros, the status of poet laureate. So we were doing Ti-Jean and His Brothers. And in the play Ti-Jean and His Brothers, there is an actor that has to play 3 characters all at once, simultaneously. A very difficult part, and I was casted in the role. The director, a Trinidadian by the name of Raul Gibbons, a wonderfully talented Trinidadian dramatic artist, found out that the great man himself was passing through Jamaica on his way back to St. Lucia, or he was doing some plays on Broadway with the likes of Morgan Freeman and people like that. And he arranged to have an interview where himself, the assistant director, and myself could meet with him. So we drove up to this home in Beverly Hills, which is a place in an area in Jamaica that overlooks the city of Kingston. Very high class, very rich, blah, blah. And there we met the great man himself, lounging beside the pool, writing his note. So the director then asked questions about the play. What sort of characterization, issues that to do with the dramatic arts, what we needed to do to express the play properly, all right? So the discussion went ahead. And then he asked, so who is doing the triple role? And Raul said, David. And he turned to me and he said, so which island are you from? And I said, I'm from Anguilla. And he said to me, I didn't know that anything good could come out of Anguilla. Apart from wanting to mash up the place, apart from wanting to throw his St. Lucian this and that in the pool, right? I didn't. Well, that comment stuck with me, and has always stuck with me till today. And then I jump to another story. You will have to forgive me, because people who know me will tell you that I'm a storyteller, and I think, by sharing stories. 2 years later, I'm back on Anguilla. And in the little village of North Hill, just up the road, there lived a gentleman who was a sailor called Hartwell Wellington Richardson, known to all of us as Captain Haji. He was a little man with big feet. His colleagues teased him that his feet were so big they could span the 2 beams on a deck. That's a technical boat term. I can explain it to you if you really want to know. He was a little man with big feet, but he was a master mariner. A master mariner who could steer an Anguillian schooner across the Caribbean Sea. And if you think of the Caribbean Sea's map, if you think of a map of the Caribbean, and you look at where Anguilla is and where Curacao and Aruba are, unlike looking at where Anguilla is, St. Kitts, Nevis, Montserrat, Dominica, Martinique, Guadeloupe, etc., where any seaman worth his salt can sail any boat or drive any boat, landfall to landfall, all the way down to Trinidad. if you look at a map of the Caribbean with Anguilla, St. Martin, and Aruba and Curacao, you will see that it's open ocean. Open ocean. And yet, Captain Hadji could sail a two-masted Anguillan schooner from here to Philipsburg, St. Martin, load a bunch of families, both Anguillan and St. Martin, struggling to get to Curacao and Aruba to work in the oil fields and make a living. 4 days across the Caribbean Sea, no landfall. He would sleep by the wheel of the schooner and read the binnacle at night by a lamp. He would never leave the wheelhouse, even when it was not his watch. And time after time, schooners with families were taken safely across the Caribbean. In fact, one of the largest schooners ever built on Anguilla, built right there across that screen from the Lit Lounge, wrecked on a reef off Borneo. Thank God didn't drown anybody, but was off course and wrecked because it didn't follow the schooner captained by Captain Hadji. I say all that to say this. In 1975, I was given the honor to write his will, and I was given the honor to hold his dying hand and mark a simple X on his last will and testament because he was totally illiterate. 2 nights later, friends and I sat outside. The little house is still there, one of those old government houses. Those of us Anguillians who know what a government house is, was structures that were erected after Hurricane Donna as temporary shelters for the devastation of the hurricane. 2 nights later, we sat outside his home drinking 5 EC dollar Cruzan rum and singing hymns at his wake. He, along with a set of names that I could repeat here tonight, became my hero. Not the Garveys, not the Coffees, not Ronald Webster, not the heroes of the Caribbean, whether you want to include Manley, Eric Williams, you choose your pick. Political leaders who have made a difference that I recognize and I do not take from. But people like Hadji became my heroes and taught me, along with all the values that my own family taught me, bedded in Christian principles, bedded in discipline, bedded in community, what it was to be an Anguillan. Why the sea meant so much to who we became and who we still are. Why the poverty of this island, in all its drought-ridden history, which we can go into at another night, to show how desperately poor we once were. Why these people, and Hadji being emblematic of an entire generation, could master the arts of craftsmanship on the ocean to keep 35 square miles of poverty-ridden families alive and able to survive. They were the ones who sailed to Santo Domingo. They were the ones who took people to Aruba and Curacao. They were the ones who went as far as Haiti and Cuba. And they are the ones who left us a legacy of boat racing, which is a living testament to our history, unique in the Caribbean. Unique in the Caribbean. I don't need to go over that again. I'm sure many of you have seen the book, have read the book I've written and seen the DVD I've done. But 2 racing boats on convergent tacks where a collision is inevitable, where every single country in the world knows full well, just like when you drive a car on the road, you got a right way on the left, I got a right way on the right. Left, right. You know how to pass. Well, every sailing boat in the world knows that the boats on the starboard tack must give way to the boats on the port tack, or vice versa. Not in Anguilla. 2 boats on convergent tacks, minutes, seconds away from collision and drowning, must cry, hardly, hardly, and tack away. Symbols are important in culture. That is a symbol for us right there. It's not a statue in the valley. It's not a document enclosed in some museum in nitrogen for us to read for the next 100 years. It is an actual fact that will happen again this year when the boat racing starts. That is a living testament to our history. That's what made a difference to me. Those are the heroes that made me feel that I can stand up and tell anybody I am an Anguillian. And this is who I am. I love building boats. That's me. Because I grew up on stories of Anguillian seamanship and sailors, and they were the ones that allowed us to be here. I have a beef with a lot of Anguillians who feel that our history began in 1967. Always cussing them for that. You're so wrong, it ain't funny. But the point is that if you view your culture in a way that makes you proud, if you view the humble elements in a culture that makes you feel a sense of belonging, hey, I could talk to anybody. I can meet any visitor from any part of the world and say, welcome to Anguilla. Let me tell you a few stories. Make them feel good. When I was Parliamentary Secretary of Education, years and years ago, I had a visit to the Turks and Caicos Islands, and I sat in a restaurant myself. And in that restaurant, there were 3 academics sitting close to me on a separate table. And I heard the 3 academics start to talk about their visits to other islands in the Caribbean and what the work they were doing. And all of a sudden, I heard Anguilla. So, of course, my ears got twice as long, and I was leaning over on my table to try and eavesdrop. And I heard one academic say, the people of Anguilla are different from any other island I have ever visited. And I said, what? Were we so disgusting? And they bragging on us? What is it about us? I can't give you the answer. Culture is a conglomeration of all our own experiences and the way we show up. Culture is a mass of how we behave, our beliefs, our values, how we affect our friends, our families, our community, and what we are and who we are. And like I say, how we show up. So I can't give you a definition as what the Anguillian cultural icon is, or the Anguillian, how he behaves and how, what influence he has and why is he different from someone else. I can't give you that. That is an individual thing, but I know it is there. And I believe the uniqueness of Anguillian history is part of the reason why it is there. The absence of a colonial structure in all its authority that happened so much in the plantation societies to the south. The fact that our poverty made us own land in a different way than all other Caribbean islands. The fact that the sea was the only release makes us who we are. And now we have transitioned to a whole new economy. There is no reason for us to jettison that history, that influence that makes us who we are. When I was 16 years old, and I'll wrap up on this, I had my first trip to Sandy Island. Big tourist spot. All the boats go there. Every day you got Sandy Island Express. Knock yourselves out. The Sandy Island I went to when I was 16 years old was a whole different place. A little island full of coconut trees, something out of a picture book. The only nuisance on the island was bowgrass. Absolutely clean, pristine, and different. I was so blown away by the 2 hours I spent on Sandy Island that afternoon with my friend. I came home up my pen, and this is where the artist comes in, and wrote a poem called The Lord of Sandy. Oh, if I could be the Lord of Sandy, enthroned upon a coral spreading arms, with turtle doves, my elegant courtiers, and palace carpet, its smooth, white, shining sands. Oh, take me to that Lord of Sandy, that Isle of Sandy. If I could share, I've forgotten most of the poem now. It's a long poem, and my hair is getting gray. But the last line says, if I could share these beauties and desires, and show you of all the dreams I fancy, but only carry me to that kingdom wrapped in blue, and let me be the Lord of Sandy. The second to last line in that poem, wrapped in blue, became the tag with one word put in front of it, tranquility. Tranquility wrapped in blue was the slogan that launched Anguilla's tourism in 1980 and stood there for 25 years. Because it expressed a spirit. It expressed a spirit of tranquility at that time. Well, we ain't so tranquil now, but things have changed. Culture is dynamic. And all I can leave you with, whether you're an Anguillian or a visitor, is that how we show up as people to each other is a clear indication of either the validity or the waste of our cultural experience. For me, I look at simple people, simple heroes, and our humble history with an enormous sense of pride. And it helps me define day in, day out who I am and how I show up. Thank you. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Thank you very much, David. Can I hear another round of applause for David? In my mind, this is what I imagined. I imagined us being able to sit down and listen to somebody with an experience and give them the opportunity to share it. It doesn't happen that often. Nowadays, we're buried in our social media devices and we're whisked around the world for seconds at a time. You know, we're not spending any time really grasping anything. But culture is so important and so dear to me that I feel that this is how we are built. And by definition, most of us think that culture is something static, you know, something in a museum, something that's a three-legged pot. Culture is actually alive. Culture, by definition, is the impact of the environment on you and the impact of you on the environment. Okay, so it's always moving, it's always forming, it's always developing us as a people. And that is what David showed us. David showed us how we got from there to here and how that has formed us and informed us. Okay, so on that note, I'm going to invite a very, very good friend of mine and business partner who is originally from St. Kitts but spent most of his time in Canada. And how he gets involved is that he's one of the critical people when it comes to getting Caribbean art exported. He has been working in the music industry for almost 40 years. And he has a good sense of the Caribbean, almost better than most Caribbean people, having traveled, having worked, and having had associates throughout the Caribbean for many, many years. So I'm going to call on stage Mr. Ivan Berry so that he can express to you about his opinion and what he feels about the impact of arts and culture on tourism. Mr. Ivan Berry. I can take down my voice, you know. I'm a bit louder than everybody else. And when y'all playing Vibes Cartel, y'all don't turn it down. So don't tell me to turn down. I can turn it up. David, I see Ivan putting on a special mic, boy. No, but oh, Ivan mic, Lord, oh my God, I can fix that now.
Lordy.
Yeah,
That's
okay,
all right.
kill this mic. We'll Evan will use the one that he has.
Yes, yes, yes. Good evening, everyone. I could never be a storyteller like David, so I am a story writer. I have mine written. I can do a little bit of a freestyle, but there were some very important things that Devon and I spoke about, and Devon and I try to accomplish and do throughout the Caribbean when it pertains to music, arts and culture, and how it pertains to the export of culture and the import of foreign revenue. So I didn't want to lose a train of thought. I didn't want to lose track of some of the important things that I think is necessary for anyone. Eh? Oh, go over in the middle. Oh, sorry. I didn't want to lose track of anything um, that is that I think is really critical. I've been in the music business now for about 40 years, on the highest level as an executive in Canada and senior VP of Sony BMG. Have developed many, many artists, and I now have attained 2 Lifetime Achievement Awards and a Hall of Fame in Canada. And I think my goal now is to translate and transfer some of those expertise and the networks that I have globally to Caribbean artists. I think by far the Caribbean is filled of globally accomplished artists, but lacking some infrastructure and lacking some proper management. And so I want to talk a little bit about that and how that can pertain to what the discussion is tonight, which is tourism, cultural tourism. So bear with me for a moment with my sheets. I write, the greatest exportable commodity that Anguilla and the entire Caribbean region has to offer is within our culture and creativity. Cultural tourism is one of the largest and fastest growing areas for global markets. The creative industries are constantly used to market and promote destinations, as there are distinct synergies between culture and tourism. Cultural amenities like landmarks, sites, music, dance, art, festivals, and all other aspects of the creative industries play a role on the impact of tourism. The authenticity of our culture will always provide a staggering tourism experience. Proper leadership of the creatives are required for long-term vision, positioning, and impact, and focus on the development, the nurturing, and the export of our culture, both tangible and intangible, is necessary to become impactful. This approach leads to the growth of cultural tourism, which leads to an increase in GDP. As my expertise are in the business of music, I will first focus on the development of this intangible area. From a musical perspective, we have always done a great job in the creation and performance of the art form. However, never a suitable job of wealth and job creation within this invaluable commodity. We have exported numerous global superstars, but not the business professionals to support them globally. What this creates is wealth for a few artists while creating thousands of taxable jobs for foreigners to work closely with our exported talents. Foreign governments and private sectors benefit more than our regional governments and private sectors. This is not a very good model, and it is time to invert the pyramid. Today, we have a large amount of talented individuals at the top of the pyramid, supported by very few business professionals at the bottom of the pyramid. If this pyramid is inverted and a sustainable industry is built, we will see this positively affecting tourism. We see cultural tourism that generates double figures to GDP in Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados, Cuba, and other Caribbean territories. You see, we have an advantage as Caribbean music of all genres and languages has unique and diverse rhythms and is well known and popular around the world. When taken seriously, developed and executed properly, we witness world dominating superstars such as Bob Marley, Rihanna, Nicki Minaj, Sean Paul, Jimmy Cliff, Ricky Martin, Gloria Estefan, Tito Puente, the Fugees, Wyclef Jean, Kassav, Marshall Montana, Buju Banton, Peter Tosh, Sparrow, Shaggy, Beanie Man, Shabba Ranks, Chronics, Third World, and of course our own British dependency, Amari Banks, Deanna Mustinton, etc. And many other that are either directly from the Caribbean or of Caribbean heritage. Caribbean artists are particularly strong in live performances as it's our number one line item for making a living. We, however, forget about the lots of other support and income generating individuals, such as songwriters, graphic designers, entertainment lawyers, stylists, makeup artists, sound engineers, producers, publicists, managers, business managers, choreographers, accountants, dancers, photographers, video directors, script writers, and of course, social media specialists, and the scores of other roles that make up a vibrant and perpetual music industry, which helps in the global branding of our right brain thinkers. In order to capitalize and enhance the capacity of underlying career opportunities, we must build local capacity of person for the identified areas in the business of music, who will participate in the full development of the sector to support our tomorrow superstars. We have we have to strategically strengthen linkages with international executives, artists, songwriters, producers, and others to build on the collaborations for future marketing, promotion, and exploitation. We have to perfect the art of songwriting and artist development and create hit songs for export to the international market while the intellectual property and the foreign earnings remain in Anguilla and the region. Our formal educators has to offer new career options in the business of music in an effort to impact job creation, encourage entrepreneurship, and alleviate poverty, while giving a sense of purpose to idle youth, increasing their earning potential and reducing crime due to idleness. Our governments will have to enhance legislation while strongly enforcing laws that create wealth for our content creators. All this will eventually recognize Anguilla and the entire Caribbean as the new musical frontier, which heavily impacts cultural tourism. With this harsh reality staring us in the face, it is time for Anguilla and the entire Caribbean, independent artists, entrepreneurs, and companies to take steps forward to the so-called 360 all rights business model, in which there is profit sharing with the artist in earnings from a variety of artist-driven revenue streams. The model has drastically changed from the selling of the physical CD to the selling of the all-encompassed artist brand. We have to perfect the effective monetization of the entire brand of our artists while creating a new and improved industry with young entrepreneurs at the helm of the supporting jobs that sustain the artist brand. There are now, much more than before, a range of jobs that create numerous revenue streams in a cohesive manner within the music industry, where intellectual property could be created in Anguilla and within the region, while foreign revenues are earned globally and wealth comes back to Anguilla and the region to its rightful owners. And governments benefit from an increase of taxable income and other revenue earning methods, while also benefiting from the global marketing opportunities. The building of capacity in these areas of the business of music would aid in poverty reduction, employment generation, wealth management, and entrepreneurship in the industry, with proven potential for our youth. We need to effectively transform leaders in the music business so they could genuinely share and represent the interest of our talented and creative right brain thinkers. We need to establish sustainable, structured, transparent, and accountable and profitable business models. We need to align risk and reward where interest of our creative citizens, governments, investors, and the public at large are matched. We need to establish the music industry in Anguilla and the entire Caribbean as a viable and respectable avenue for wealth creation and retention. Popular music as an outlet for youth expression is undeniable. The disproportionate attraction to music as an area of professional interest amongst youth is equally as undeniable. In fact, when surveyed, the vast majority of youth at risk identify the creative industries, with music in particular, as their primary area of professional interest. What is disturbing about this is that the music, from the perspective of those same um, youth, the same young people, is defined simply as its live performance and nothing else. They are, they are oblivious to the hundreds of distinct roles and role players that contribute to the success of any one artist and or performer. Our youth must first be taught to align education, both practical and formal, with their creative talents to create a sustainable, vibrant, and perpetual recorded music industry in Anguilla and the entire Caribbean. We must not fail our right brain thinkers. We must educate them towards a global perspective to the Caribbean creative marketplace. In doing so, youth will recognize the plethora of options available to them, and that the combination between talent and education is an indomitable fortress. With our many cultural genres to be explored, developed, and recorded in its purest forms, and also fused with other global genres, Anguilla and the entire Caribbean is simply the new musical frontier. We have seen what others are currently doing and have global success by fusing genres. The Rihannas, the Nicki Minaj's, the Major Lasers, the Rock Cities, and many others. We are an exciting, diverse, and creative region that is known globally and have a serious amount of talent to be discovered, developed, and exported. The marketing opportunities and the wealth creation opportunities for our islands are great, of global impact, and circulates foreign currency in times where traditional tourism is suffering for many reasons that is out of our control. We must extract the full range of benefits from the relationships between culture and tourism. This way, we attract a multitude of investors and visitors to our island with large spendable interest. Our reach should exceed our grasp or what's heaven for. Let us band together to make certain that Anguilla is the new frontier and business model for the music industry, and as it pertains to exporting culture, importing foreign revenue, and with that, the drastic rise of cultural tourism based on all the above. As more and more foreigners embark on travel with the sole intention of having a cultural experience, cultural tourism is big business. Thank you.
I'm not as fancy as Ivan, so I don't have a headset. So I'll stay and struggle with old technology. Ivan, thank you very much. Time is always moving and the world is always changing. The advent of the internet is probably one of the most impactful technologies that we've ever had. It is literally shaping the world as well as the human mind. And of this, we must be aware. Not only the positives, but the negatives. And the way that the internet has impacted tourism is just mind-boggling. Years ago, if you were going to travel, you went to a travel agent with a budget and you were advised as to where would be a good place to go. And when you got to the destination, you most likely stayed in a hotel. It was a concierge who advised you what to do and where to go. Today's traveler has access to Google and knows more about where they want to go than some of the people who even live there. We see it's a common occurrence in Anguilla where something happens in Anguilla and Anguillians living in the UK or the US call you and say, boy, what just happened in the valley? That is the internet. The good thing about this is that the internet frees up people in a way that they've never been freed up before. And it's something that we can take advantage of. People are no longer coming to something static. They're not just coming to something. People are now coming to people. People are making friends without having ever met the person that they're friends with. And they're traveling to meet these people. People are now more aware of the cultures of a place than they ever have been before. There's so much more to discover about this world that we live in. And Anguilla is a very, very unique place. There are a couple things. We're known for our food, yes. We're known for our beaches, yes. What we're really known for is the friendliness of our people. That friendliness is culture. And if we were to grasp the concept of the value of culture, we will know where we are going to stand and what it is we want to do in the future moving forward. So what we're discussing is an asset. And what we are discussing is what are our assets. And with that said, I'd like to invite to the stage none other than our Minister, Dee-Ann Kentish Rogers.
You don't need to adjust it. Thank you. You know, before I start, I heard Ivan starting, Devon starting just now, and I had to ask myself, when I looked up at the moon, whether that was a Chinese balloon, because I feel as though one of the negative parts of the internet is that he may have scoped out what I was going to write and say this evening. But there are a lot of very interesting things that I see tonight, because you've seen and you've heard from Mr. Carty, who is a brilliant orator. You've heard from Mr. Berry, who is also a great writer. And now you'll hear from myself, and I'm a great typer. So I have my phone here with me. And for us, I think you would have seen the span through the historical perspective, the business perspective, and now my perspective is a little bit more philosophical. And our cultural differences may only be due in this instance to our generational differences. But despite those generational differences, we are all anchored to the rock. When we talk about the impact of art and culture on tourism, Usually, our conversations are directed to the economic benefits that tourism can provide to persons who work in the creative industry. Because in the Caribbean, when we talk about tourism, we examine it through an economic yardstick. We measure it in arrivals, departures, and seasons. We scrutinize the behavior of the traveler, his or her economics, mid-market or luxury. And we have marketed ourselves as speaking directly to the industry or what the market wants. We have mastered the corporate language of host guest transactions and trip advisor reviews. But the real undercurrent beneath the blue waters that keep tourism afloat is the lived experiences of the people in this country. The clinical touch points, and this is where I think the Chinese balloon checked in, of travel agents and concierge staff do not accurately capture the melodic sing-song accent and twang of the Anguillian with their pregnant eyes and drawn-out phraseology, fashioned through the broken English characteristic of islands in the Caribbean Ocean under the influence of imperialism. To a large extent, travel or tourism is a longing to experience art performed. Its baseline, which is time, space, design, and the pace of the traveler. The purchase of a ticket is a request to be transported to another dimension. And this limestone rock forms the canvas upon which the lives of Anguillians, daily performed, historically practiced, pulls the onlooker into her depths. And Anguillians, of course, exist outside of this narrow transactional experience of host and guest. Beyond the service, it is about the people who survived without lakes or running water, a people who stayed anchored to the shores of Anguilla despite its barren nature, encouraged instead to flee south to Guyana. These Anguillians who, without proper facilities, still produce legends the like of Shara Proctor and Zarnell Hughes. In this land, more than any other, the Caribbean, more than any other in the Caribbean, the traveler is here on our invitation. This consensual nature gives Anguilla a unique experience with its interpreter. When you go to a museum and you observe a piece of artwork, you are being challenged, whether you know it or not, by the author, the creator of the piece, to engage with that piece of artwork. How it is interpreted or reinterpreted is a matter for the onlooker. And as an onlooker into Anguilla, that is your experience. When you look at Anguilla, Anguilla is the product of stubborn, as I call it, or a series of no's, not here's, anywhere else. You can go to another island, but not in Anguilla. It is a product of existing in a country that doesn't have a lot, but makes do and tricks a little. Travel to this rock owes its importance to people's livelihoods due to the fact that it is taking the interpreter, the visitor, to a world beyond their routine. Experiences in Anguilla create an enduring reference of thought whose interpretation remains open and open to change after they have left our shores. Once inscribed into your memory, into your photos, into your videos. Many may interpret upon reflection something new or some new sentiment in each inquiry. The best food you ever had at Sharky's or Tasty's, the best rum punch you ever experienced at Gwen's, the best Lit Lounge mojito, are all centered around the creation of young Anguillians. This experience is not to prove the superiority of one culture, but actually to immerse yourself in the experience and the daily lives of Anguillians. Because at the end of it all, Anguilla is the canvas. And that is why some tourists never leave. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dee-Ann. This is exactly as we planned it. Can I get another round of applause, please? And I'd like to again thank our sponsors, all of them, especially Interreg. And thank you to Sabrina for coming across. We got a special treat. And hey, Adriana. Adriana is accompanying Sabrina. So this beautiful lady, two of these beautiful ladies are behind all of this. So can we hear it for them also? And our good DJ right here, DJ Ciro, is putting together a track because we have a special artist for you who's going to come up and do a piece. And he was selected on the grounds that it's about time we start to understand how not static culture is. Normally in Anguilla, when we talk about culture and we say, well, there's going to be an act. Well, it's got to be somebody with gray hair like myself. And it's got to be banjos and a string band. That is just a part of our culture. Again, I repeat, culture is not static. It's moving all the time. Everything that's happening in Anguilla right now, the good and the bad, is culture. And we have to be aware of that. And we also have to be aware that if we don't represent ourselves, somebody else will represent us. And we keep on asking the questions about gun culture and hanging pants. Yes, that's our culture also, whether we like it or not. And that exists because there's a void that we've allowed by not recognizing our culture or what our culture is, recognizing our strengths. So people are like that. We think that culture is the three-legged pot. Well, that's a part of our culture. But the way that the three-legged pot fits into our culture is not necessarily the static display at Carvel's museum, but it is where the three-legged pot is, or where it comes from when Hurricane Irma or Louis come out and you can't get no propane gas and you're gone underneath in your cellar, or you go out in the bush and you pick up 3 big rock stones. That is culture. It is the impact of our environment on us and us on it. Right? DJ, track loaded? I'd like to invite to the stage a good friend of mine, an artist who I've always been impressed with, someone who, when you get to know him, is extremely intelligent. We have the most awesome conversations. And somebody who's supremely talented in what young people do. There's a man we call Smokes. He goes by the name of J.R. the Lion. I'd like to have a round of applause for a young Anguillian representing what in today is Anguillian culture. Ain't no banjo and no three-legged pat, but this is where it's going. This is the direction that it's going.
Squaw. All right, good night. I ain't got much to say. Drop it. Squaw. I never performed this song before. Nowhere. Hey. Squaw. Squaw. Hey. To live and die on my small island. 35 square miles in the Lord's eye. The only place I could call mine. We a land of good vibes, great minds for some hard times. Shit I remember as a young guy. Growing up, no dad, I used to run wild. Hanging with them big boys, two tokes done high. Still can't go home without some Visine for my red eyes. Bad boy, I used to run away. Then my mama whooped my ass when she catch me on the other day. But still I love her, can't nothing change. I remember picking flowers, cooking breakfast on Mother's Day. Thinking about this shit, I feel a type of way. Remembering my first kiss back at East End Primary. A little older, a little bolder on a Saturday. Shorty took me to her room and taught me about human anatomy. And playing football, everybody cheering. But when we lost the game, dog, everybody jeering. It makes me laugh when I think about my past and how this land makes me half the man I am. Now I'm more than that. I don't say shit, I can't afford to rap. So if I get a little wild and blame my home for that. If you a patriot, then show your tat. These people smile up in your face, still trying to hold you back. Right in AXA. Squat, squat, squat. Hey, okay. I used to sell weed to my classmates. Up late selling crack, can't wait, now my ass late. And cutting class, coming home before the afternoon. Blazing with my dudes, we some young fucking goons. In trouble bad girls, cause them good girls too stush. Writing rhymes in the pages on my school books. On the park, puffin', passing with them West niggas. No capping them, it's still some of my best niggas. Then I couldn't take no more, so I dropped out. Selling dope full time, turned my mom's home to a trap house. She couldn't take no more, I got kicked out. Ghetto star, watch the way I live now. Smoking weed, drinking Hennessy, I'm just like Pac. Throwing up my middle finger to them dumb white cops. Shedding tears for my niggas when they pass at the wake. Put a whole fucking bottle in the grass, dog, rest in peace. Dog, rest in peace. Squat, 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 squat. To live and die in AXA is the place for me. Squat, squat, squat. Okay, hold up. And then we grew up and things changed. Ain't no more fist fight, rock stone on no switchblade. Everybody loading up them big things and getting killed for what you say, so watch your lips, man. Dog, you got niggas ripping colors and they kill their own cousins, saying that it's gang related, but it wasn't. But ain't nothing, that's how it goes. So when I'm alone, I close my eyes and picture home. How it used to be, a place for you, a place for me. And in the whole wide world, there ain't a better place to see. Some say we only got them beaches and white sand. That's true, but the streets is a whole other life, fam. We got a different speed here than the rest of the globe. Only come to terms with it if you live in the know. I feel alive in this place where I bled first. So when I die, bury me inside this red dirt.
Yeah!
I don't know if y'all got it. We don't make no excuses for nobody. And that's culture. That's what we came here to discuss. So if you think it's old and gray like me, it's not. You're looking at the future. That's a young Anguillian. And that's the art that they're listening to and impacting. And there's undeniable, that's talent. Whether you like the talent or not, that is talent. And whether you like what he's saying or not, that is talent. We call this soapbox because we ain't here to please nobody. Because we real people, beyond servitude. I don't have a lot of friends because listen, I crack the truth. I cracked the truth. And just like that, we did it, it's done, it came out exactly how we planned it to be. DJ, the rest of the night is yours, my brother. The speakers are on the floor. If anybody wants to have a conversation with them, you go and have a conversation with them. But that's it. Thank you for coming.